goons and gals, it is Doug here with the Born a Goon channel. Before we get started with today's video, let me say thank you so very much for stopping by and visiting the channel. If you are a current subscriber, I thank you for your continued support. And if you are not, I hope you become one. That way we can share our love of two wheels and this whole entire moto journey together. So today's video is going to be my 1,000 mile update on the 2022 Honda CRF 450RL, which I have now owned for 7 months. And if many of you repeat visitors are asking, has anything changed from your first impression videos? And the answer is, oh hell yes, much has changed. And I guess that's why we call them first impressions, because there's only so much data we can gather on our first ride of a bike. But it's not till we truly own something can we understand what the bike is all about and whether it fits us. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things today. I want to talk about what I've uncovered with the bike and some of the flaws that I'm having. I want to talk about how I have chose to ride this bike and where I have chose to ride it, because that plays a big part. I want to talk about some of the upgrades that I've made to the bike and possible upgrades I will make in the future with modifications. And at the end, I'm going to save some time for a rant, which is the biggest culprit of my disappointment surrounding this bike right now and my frustration, and that's these continued supply chain problems we've had since COVID started. Now let's begin with the bike itself. Look, I'm not the first YouTuber that's ever told you this. You guys already know the single greatest flaw of the 450RL is that ECU unit. Because of what Honda had to do to get it to be 50 state legal, they put this ECU in there that's just god awful. It creates cold starting issues, flame outs for some, and the worst of the worst is this horrible throttle jerking response. Now, many of you have reached out to me and asked if I had flameouts. No, I think on the 2021 and 2022 versions, they fixed that. But I do get cold starting and I still have some throttle jerking. Now, I recommended in a past video a few fixes for this. You can get the G2 throttle tamer, which I have. I highly recommend that for everybody. It's about an $80 part, but it doesn't completely fix the problem. It makes a great deal of a difference, but it doesn't completely eliminate it. The only way that you can eliminate it, which you guys already know, is the Vortex ECU. You can't do it with the Dyno Jet. You can't do it with the JD jetting. It has to be the Vortex. And here is what lies the problem. Because there is only one source for all of us to go to fix this, which makes it hard for us right now to obtain that part. Now, going through this whole supply chain, which I'll save some time here for Vortex towards the end, but I've now been waiting in excess of 18 weeks for this. It now makes me wonder why Honda has not come up with a solution for this problem. I mean, why doesn't the 450 ignition work? Why doesn't the 450RX ignition work? Why couldn't you just make something in your parts catalog for us to buy and just slap a competition use only sticker on it? I know there's legalities involved. I know it's a business. There's money involved and lawyers involved. I get it. But this model is probably in its 5th year of production. You would think by now that there would be some other type of solution. Now, this brings me into how I'm riding the bike and why I'm becoming increasingly frustrated. When I first got the bike, I didn't think it was that bad, but I was just riding some fire roads and some moderate single track, and I put the G2 throttle tamer on there. I compensated for this terrible jerky throttle by running the bike in about 4th or 5th gear through single track. Now, that sounds stupid, and to some degree it is, but on mild single track, that's where I found a good balance, and it was good enough to get me through the current flaws of the bike. But as I started to go through more aggressive single track with more elevation changes, it's harder to ride the bike in that type of gear because you want to shift down, you want to get some lower torque, you want to clear obstacles. And that's where that throttle jerkiness just becomes exacerbated. The harder that you're pushing this bike, or the more technical terrain that you migrate to, the harder this bike is to ride. Now, as I am riding this bike and starting to push the pace a little bit more, not only am I finding that the jerky throttle response is a problem, but some issue is going on with the handling for me. I cannot keep this bike in a straight line at speed on tight single track. Now, here's where the problem lies. I know I've heard some bad stories about the tires. Again, that's not Honda's fault, that's just the way it is. But I don't know if it's the tires, or it's the jerky throttle response, or it's something else in the suspension. I've tried different adjustments, I've changed the rake and trail, I've done everything that I can do, but basically the problem lies that if I don't get this ECU unit and fix the jerky throttle response, I don't know where my problem lies. I don't want to just buy a bunch of new tires or go through a bunch of troubleshooting things and then find out, oh, it was just the ignition all along. So if you're going to do super technical, I'm talking about super technical, which may not fit all you guys out there, but if you are going to do that, this bike, the harder that you push it on those tight trails, the worse that it gets. It has all kinds of feedback issues, and I think most of it's centered around that jerky throttle. Now, that brings me to where and how I chose to ride it. Obviously, you know how I chose to ride it, but I'm also new here to Las Vegas. I haven't been here, but just a little over a year. I've spent most of my time riding a lot of single track, but it's been in smoother deserts. It's been in like Coral Canyon in San Diego. You have a lot of rocks there, but it's basically hard packed. This Las Vegas area, for those that you have ridden here or know, man, this is the most brutal, rough, abrasive type of surface I have ever ridden on. It is rocky. When I'm talking about rocky, it's not like San Diego rock, where you can just hit those big rocks, like Utah, where it's really sweet to ride up those big rock shelves. These are like softball to baseball sized rocks, just scattered all over the trail, followed by maybe a little boulder. And that's obviously very hard to gain traction in because it's very loose and it's very slippery. And then when you hit those rocks at speed, they obviously could point you on or off the track. So, you know, it could be a tire issue where that needs to be fixed and these are not the right tires. I get that. But it's really hard to troubleshoot that whole thing. Also, if you've ever ridden out here, it's abrasive as hell. Like every time you drop the bike, it's like landing on sandpaper or something, and it just marks it up and destroys it, which is a completely different topic. Now, the modifications that I have made to the bike, I've tried to be as minimal as I can. I'm not one of these riders that like to do a lot in modifications. And when it comes to having bad experiences on a bike, I don't like to point the finger and say, oh, if I get a new suspension system, I'm going to be a better rider. Well, if I do this, I'm going to be a better rider. I feel that I should start with myself and work on my riding first rather than spending thousands of dollars on high-tech suspension systems. I'd rather spend that on learning how to properly ride the bike first, because maybe that's the problem. So because of that, I've tried to put as little into this bike as possible. The first thing that I wanted to do was get some kind of wind protection coming from an adventure bike, and also being in the desert, it's windy, and I prefer to have some type of wind protection. So I put this windscreen on it, which I believe comes from a Honda ADV-X. I'll put all these links down in the description box. I'm not an affiliate with anything. I'm just sharing my parts list with you. And I just basically bolted it onto the front number plate, and it's pretty nice because it covers the light and adds us some protection there too. Now, I got some of these metal bars at Home Depot. I'll put a link to those, and I just basically bent them into shape and made a frame out of it, which from that frame I was able to mount just your standard old cell phone holder. Now, I'm not big on navigation systems. I don't really look at that stuff while I'm riding. That's just my preference, and because I'm only riding in the town of Las Vegas, I don't need very much navigation since I kind of know where I'm going. And this is enough for me, and it offers the wind protection. But lately I've had to take it off because, as I had mentioned earlier, because of the abrasive nature, every time I drop the bike, I'm just going to smash the screen. So I'd rather just deal with the wind noise and the buffering on the highway, so I don't just keep continuing to break windscreens on it. Now, this brings me to other things that I have purchased for this bike, and because of these supply chain issues, I don't have. I recently did a video as well as making a seat. This was my second version of the seat on this bike, and I don't like it, but I've ordered the seat concept seat. It's been about 9 weeks on that. I don't have it. I already told you I'm like my 18th week with the Vortex ignition. I don't have that either. I'm about 10 weeks in on some Supermoto tires. I don't have that either. So I have almost $3,500 worth of parts that are floating out there in the atmosphere, and I have no idea when I'm ever going to get them. And that makes me really frustrated. And I see these videos out there of everybody showing me their seat concepts and their Vortex, and I'm like, damn, when am I going to get mine? So if you were to buy this bike today from a dealer or new that doesn't have it, and you ordered it immediately, you might be waiting up till Christmas before you get it. Now, if you're patient, you're going to do fire roads, you're going to do some road riding, okay, that's not that big of a deal. If you do want to do that aggressive single track, it is a big deal. You're not going to like it, and it's going to be a pain in the ass to ride. I'm just being honest. I'm not knocking the bike. So now I'm in the dilemma of how much longer am I going to continue to wait, because that is how I'm going to ride. That's how I chose to ride. That's why I bought this bike. And I'm not going to sit there and do it if I don't have this ECU. So at some point I'll have to draw the line. Either I get it Or how long am I going to hold the bike and just get frustrated and pissed off and sell it? Now, I don't want to do that. I don't want to make a harsh judgment because a lot of things that I mentioned in my previous videos are true. I really love this bike. And I've changed the name from Little Baby Red to Seabiscuit. And here's why. Because if you ever seen the movie Seabiscuit, which I'm sure most of you have, you should. It's a fantastic movie. But basically the story is here's this great horse, but the people that had it first didn't know what to do with it, treated it horribly, and it was just a terrible horse left for dead. And then it gets in the right hands of the right people and becomes like the greatest racehorse in history. I am currently owning version 1 of Seabiscuit. Like, there is a lot of potential. There is a lot here to offer. I know it's there, but if I don't get these parts, it doesn't make a difference. It's never going to be the bike that I want it to be. And I'm doing everything I can right now to keep it because I love its highway manners. I love its dual sport capability. When you're on a good road that isn't just overly brutal or really super technical, it's a fun bike to ride. It's a wheelie machine. It's a hooligan bike. You know, I'm looking forward to getting my supermoto wheels so I can go back to supermoto tracks too. And it's just kind of like the all-around great dual sport with that Honda quality. I've talked about the fit and finish and everything else. But man, if I don't get these parts, I won't have a choice, and that's going to be sad because I really want to see this thing through. I really like this bike. I think for those of you who've owned this bike and have put the work into it, you truly have that unique, special bike. And if you're asking yourself that question, well, why even bother? Why buy it if it takes all of this trouble? Well, that's the trouble you go through to have something perfect. And I think when you're looking at adventure bikes, dual sport, perfect 50-50 bike, this unicorn bike, so to speak, you have to build that yourself. It's not being built currently. And I think this is one of the greatest platforms to start with is this CRF 450RL. But now you know my frustrations. I guess if I just don't get this part, I have no choice but to sell the bike or get rid of the bike and move on to something else, which will be very sad. So guys, that's going to be my video today. I honestly hope that at 1,000 miles I would be more excited about this bike. It's been maintenance free up to this point. I haven't changed the oil after 100 miles, still running it at 900 if anybody's worried about those oil changes. Again, I did the maintenance myths video. You can scour back through my channel and look at it. Everything outside of this jerky throttle response is perfect for me. You know, I mean, I don't even need the seat. Seat concepts can hang on to that for a while, but I desperately need this vortex. And I'm putting a lot of faith in that too, because I don't even know if it really works. I mean, some people say it works. Some people say they're still experiencing jerky throttles with it. I mean, I don't know this yet. So there's still that outlier that needs to be taken care of. And I'm just here in limbo, which is pissing me off. So I want to thank you guys so much for listening. And let me know how you feel. Let me know if you guys are still waiting on your vortex. Let me know what you've done to your CRF 450RL, what kind of mods you've put on it. Again, I haven't done very much to it, just a windscreen, couple pieces of protection, and the rest of it is $4,000 worth of parts out in the metaverse somewhere. So I'm really interested in hearing your stories. Hope you guys come back. Hope you subscribe. Got a lot of great things here for this channel, a lot of great things that we're doing here in the future. Until the next time, everything that I discussed in today's video is just my opinion only, and I could be wrong.